I'm Kurt Benkert, and this is Pocket Presence, powered by Sleeper. Here we go. You getting tired of that yet? Let's go. Another episode of Pocket Presence. Episode, who knows? I don't know. Probably closer to 69 than 0, but we're going to get this thing rolling. Tyler, good morning.
Good morning. You're wrong. Episode 18, and I believe 18 is closer to 0 than it is to 69.
You're probably right.
Regardless, we move on. We also have found ourselves synced up with the week of the NFL. Not intentional, but
about time.
Fun nonetheless.
We played catch up, dude. We launched this podcast, 2 months. We launched this in December, I think. I feel like we've been doing this podcast. I feel like me and you have been doing it for 4 months. I feel like I've been doing it for like 6 months. But here we are, 2 months later. We're rolling. We've got a bunch of stuff in the oven cooking, and we are creeping up on NFL playoffs, and it's getting wild. How do you feel about like this week particularly? Like I'm like, all right, let's get through the games that don't matter and like give me the games that do matter, inject them into my veins because I need it.
I agree. I'm biased. I'm a Packers fan, so it is a win and in game, and so you get hyped up for that. But yeah, you look around and you just start hearing all the news of Carson Wentz starting, Sam Darnold starting, Tyler Huntley starting, and that doesn't really get you excited to watch football. But nonetheless, I think we have to appreciate football while we can, because come April, May, June, it starts to get dire. And I am looking forward for those episodes because we can get creative, and I think there's a lot of fun things we can do in the off season. But
I agree.
We just will long for the days where you could even watch Carson Wentz play football in the middle of June.
We're in like April, just like under the covers, like binging Netflix, like give me Carson Wentz, give me something. But no, dude, I feel you there. And like, I think that's the fun part of this show or podcast. Like during the season, I feel like we're so heads down and we have so much to cover, but I am looking forward to, like, conversely in the offseason, being able to dive into some like fun topics, maybe do some rebuilds, maybe some like draft prep, all that good stuff. Like, we're obviously going to talk about combine, draft, college players, everything in between. But I think some of the creative stuff will be a lot of fun, a lot of lists, love lists. So I'm looking forward to all of it, but I'm also looking forward to being very present for this week 18. And we have a lot at stake. And I'm looking at this board, dude, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know about the Bills. The last 2 weeks, they almost lost to teams they shouldn't have. Then you got Miami. Tyreek Hill's house is on fire while he's in a walking boot. Like I feel bad for him because of his house. Hope everybody's safe. But I can't help the implications of seeing him in a walking boot. And maybe that's a little bit out of touch. I don't know. That was like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah, an interesting way for us all to find out. Yeah, no, I agree. To your point on the Bills, I'm curious. This Bills team kind of like team of destiny is thrown around a lot, where you just have this, I think the Browns have this, where they just are riding some momentum that seems to now be bigger than the talent that's on the field or the schemes that, Stefanski can cook up. Is there like a sense that a team can get? Maybe the Bills are one of these teams where they're like, I don't know how we've been winning these games, but we have been, and we just got to ride that good feeling into the playoffs.
Yeah, dude. I think like that's the beauty of having a quarterback like Josh Allen, is like when things look ugly, when you have a big guy that can run the ball, it kind of covers up some holes in the pass game. Covers it, like the fact that he can get 3 to 4 yards a pop falling forward is like a get out of jail free card for play calling or for bad games or for like players not being in sync. It's like, all right. Like just cut this QB power right, like wide zone right. Like there's a little bit of a crutch that comes with a quarterback like him, and to the Bills' benefit, like it's been winning them games. So it doesn't have to be pretty. They're a team that people don't really want to play because it's not going to be pretty, and they're going to drag you out to the deep water, like Dan Campbell says, and they're going to see what's up. So I wouldn't call the Bills a team of destiny, but I will say it's been impressive just that they've found as many wins down the stretch as they have. But then again, like you look at them like early in the year, they were Super Bowl favorites for some people, right? Like this was their year. Josh Allen on the cover of Madden, like their talented rosters coming back, like more cohesiveness. And it just hasn't been. So as, exciting as has been that a quote bad teams turned out to find ways to win at the end, it's still, in my opinion, a disappointing season for them.
You mentioned Josh Allen. We just had the Pro Bowl rosters announced. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have a lot of actual football to talk about, but a lot of big snubs come out of this announcement. Josh Allen being the big one. He's currently on a lot of sites third odds on for MVP voting. I think we all agree that Lamar has now run away with it, but being third in MVP voting and then not making the Pro Bowl seems absolutely ridiculous. Who else stood out to you on this list of not making it? And does it really even matter? Because it seems like increasingly maybe players don't even care.
I think you can't really. I don't know. I don't think the Pro Bowl is the same. Obviously, they're not playing a game, but I don't even look at it of like who got snubbed, because at the end of the day, every single year when the players opt out and don't do it, there ends up being like 5 to 8 Pro Bowl quarterbacks per conference, and it's like they add that notch to their belt, and it's like you got like Tyler Huntley last year with the Ravens who went to the Pro Bowl, and it's like he wasn't a Pro Bowl quarterback, right? Like he was last year, but like when you have so many people opt out or so many people that get injured down the stretch, it's kind of like this year's passing leaders. Like, I don't know, it's whoever's healthy at this point in the year gets kind of like thrust up into the top 5, top 10 of the passing categories. And I don't know, the Pro Bowl is nothing to me personally, where I think all pro is what matters. Like, give me the all pro list, give me the NFL top 100, because those are the two that matter. The Pro Bowl, it's like more fan voting, more like who's got the social media going and whatnot for them, where I think the all pro accolade, that's the one. And after that, then it's NFL top 100.
Yeah, it is interesting. I know a lot of people call it a popularity contest. I looked into the voting. It's a third fan vote, a third coach vote, and a third player vote. So theoretically, people that know football, the players and the coaches, have a majority of the vote, but it might be a case where if you're so overwhelmingly popular that the fan vote can just carry you into the Pro Bowl. Do you know, Kurt, the person that had the most amount of votes
for the
Pro Bowl?
Right?
It was Brock Purdy, which seems a little surprised. Like, he doesn't strike me as the most popular NFL player, yet there he is with the most amount of votes.
Yeah, I think when you look at the landscape of the NFC, like let's go pull up a quarterback list. So when you look at like what we got here, we got Brock Purdy has 4,280 yards. He is second only behind Tua. And then you have Dak Prescott and Jared Goff, who have 4,200. But like, Jared Goff's not gonna. I mean, is he a Pro Bowler this year?
Jared Goff was not listed on the.
Yeah, like I don't think like Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff has thrown 130 more balls than Brock Purdy to get less yards. Like, then you got Dak Prescott, then you got Matt Stafford, who missed some time, and then there's
both Pro Bowlers, by the way. Dak and Matt Stafford both are the alternates to Brock Purdy.
And then you have like Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. Like, I mean, the NFC is really like underrepresented, because you got guys like Kirk Cousins, who would have been a surefire Pro Bowler probably at this point if he had continued on at least his like stat pace that he was at. So it's just, I'm not shocked to see Brock there, but I am like, I don't know. The Pro Bowl for me is like, it's not a waste of time. I think it's one thing that like, oh, I got that trophy, like let's move on. Or I got that accolade, let's move on. It's at least for the players. I don't think it's those guys in the locker room, they're waiting for the AP like all pro. Like that's what was he first team, second team, whatever. But again, I'm shocked looking at this list right now. Like Tua, Brock, and Jared Goff are top 3 in passing in the NFL in the year 2023. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not Justin Herbert. It's not Kirk Cousins. Like, so many guys have gotten hurt this year that it's like, if you just stayed healthy, probably by process of how many pass attempts you have, you're going to be somewhere in the top 10.
It doesn't indicate to you that coaching becomes a large part of this as well. We talk about Ben Johnson all the time as Detroit's OC, probably going to be up for a head coaching job here. And then Mike McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan are 2 of the greatest offensive minds in the league right now. It's kind of like the Pro Bowl, at least as far as quarterbacks are concerned, might be as much of a coaching award as it is a player award for some of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that Kyle Shanahan tree. Look, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 3 of the top 9 quarterbacks coming directly from that like 2021 San Francisco staff, or 2020. Yeah, it'd be 2021. You have Tua, who's with Mike McDaniel. You have Brock Purdy, who's still with Shanahan. Then you have CJ Stroud with Bobby Slowick, who just was there from last year, all in the top 10. It's efficiency in the scheme. What are they being asked to do? And then you got other guys. It's like Jared Goff has had a pretty good year, right? He's thrown 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He has a 96 rating. Like, he's above average as a quarterback in the top 10 now. But if you had all these other guys healthy and you just watch them on tape, you wouldn't say that Jared's a top 10 quarterback by how he looks. But he's efficient for the most part, besides his 4 interception games here and there. And he just throws the ball a lot. So I do think that people have to take into account scheme, situations they're in, players around them. Like, if you look at if you look at CJ Stroud and his receiving core versus Jared Goff and his receiving core and running backs, like two guys are in two completely different situations and being asked to do way different things.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think it's a little unfair. Pro Bowl used to be in Hawaii, and this year it's in Camping World Stadium, which I believe is in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
I think it was in Las Vegas last year. If I was a player, I'd kind of want the all-paid vacation with my family to Hawaii and go play a flag football game maybe one day.
Yeah, give me that. That'd be ideal. I think Orlando's a little bit of a cop out. I don't know. Maybe Orlando won the bid for it.
Yeah, I mean, if we know anything about the NFL, is they're going to put anything up for bid as they have the draft and maybe now the Pro Bowl. So the teams with the most Pro Bowl players, I think this is where it sorts out correctly for me anyway. The 49ers lead the league with 9 Pro Bowlers, Ravens and the Cowboys with 7, Dolphins and Eagles with 6, Chiefs, Lions, and Browns all with 5. Those seem to me to be the best crop of teams. Mm-hmm. What's most interesting are the 4 teams without Pro Bowlers. You have the Panthers, Commanders, Patriots, all teams that are going to be picking or would have been picking in the top 3 or 5 of the draft. And then you have the Green Bay Packers with 0 Pro Bowlers. What do you make of that, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. Like how far down is Jordan Love on that Pro Bowl list? Like as
I don't know
voting.
if we know I'm not sure if we know the full voting list, but it was noted that out of all the quarterbacks in the AFC and NFC who made the Pro Bowl, Jordan Love has more touchdown passes than all of them. Not that touchdown passes are the end-all be-all, but statistically, you could make the argument that he's having a better year than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
You could make the argument he's having a better year
Patrick
than
Mahomes got in the Pro Bowl.
Patrick Mahomes is in the Pro Bowl, yes.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Like, that tells you everything you need to know. Like, this Pat has not had a good year. 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Jordan Love has 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions with a way younger receiving core, a way younger whole operation. And I mean, if you just look at them on film, even the rating, like Jordan Love 93.8, Pat Mahomes 92.6. Then you go and watch what are they being asked to do, and how Jordan is literally playing at an MVP level this last month. And recency bias at least should tell you you should get an uptick in Pro Bowl voting. But again, I think real knowers of ball can look at what Jordan's doing and know that he belongs. And I would not be shocked to see him get an alternate anyways down the stretch into the Pro Bowl with how the playoffs might play out. Like Brock Purdy, probably going to a Super Bowl most likely. He's not going to go. You have Dak Prescott, might make a long run into the playoffs. He's probably not going to go. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But I would not be shocked to see Jordan sneak his way in. But yeah, it's a popularity contest. Jordan Love got snubbed.
He got snubbed. And it's fun for us fans to talk about, us talking heads to talk about. But when you have, no offense to Tyler Huntley, who will be playing this weekend for the Ravens, he made the Pro Bowl last year. And so I don't think in the same breath you can say he got snubbed, this is a ripoff, and then also have an institution like the Pro Bowl have a backup quarterback go and play in it. So it's, you kind of got to look at both sides.
I almost want to just go on Twitter right now and say Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl last year and Jordan Love didn't this year.
Blind resume, Tyler Huntley, Jordan Love. How does this guy make the Pro Bowl and this guy doesn't make the Pro Bowl?
Man, that's tough.
That's salacious.
Let me real quick. Let me cook this up live real quick.
Okay.
In the middle of recording.
While Kurt is posting something salacious on Twitter, we're going to go to our Twitter replies on @pocket_presence. Be sure to follow us there so that you can get your questions answered on the show. We might have to check back in on that tweet, Kurt, at the end of the show and see how it did in real time. But the first question we have, you talked about how Lamar Jackson, there's no reason he couldn't win MVP every year for the next 5 years. Somebody asked, can Jordan Love win an MVP in the next 5 years? And you just mentioned he's playing at an MVP level recently. Is there anything to say he can't win this award in the next half decade?
There's definitely a way. I really think if he plays the way that he has this entire month of December for 80+% of the season next year, he will be top 3 in MVP regardless of who's hurt or who's not. What are his stats the last few weeks? He's 17 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's fully capable. Let's go check this out real quick. This is important. Look at his game log. He's the number 5 fantasy quarterback this year, number 6 overall. The last 3 weeks, let's go back even further. Dating back until week 11, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That is 8, if my math is correct, 8 touchdowns and interceptions in that 3-game stretch. Then he's 1-1, so 9-1. Then he has 11 and 1 interception, And then we have 13 and one interception, 16 touchdowns to one interception, I believe, passing with two rushing touchdowns in that stretch. 18 touchdowns, one interception in a 7 game stretch. In the most important stretch of the year. Like, had he played any less than that, they would not be in playoff consideration at all. He could not afford to make any mistakes. If you give me that for a bulk of the season, and even slightly worse than that, I mean, dude, Jordan Love has thrown one interception in the last 2 months. Come on. He's thrown three interceptions in the last 3 months total. So, yes, if he's playing like this next year with maybe some new draft capital, maybe they get like another stud receiver. Like, give him some even more juice. I love the guys they have, but he doesn't even have a freaking Cortland Sutton. He doesn't have a George Pickens. Like, he's got guys that are good at what they do, but they're not that. Nobody's that guy. And I don't know, man. There's no reason why he couldn't do it. And it'd be really exciting to see because I think Jordan deserves every bit of success that he has. He's been patient. He's taken the time to learn. Like, and shout out to Aaron Rodgers for taking him under his wing and actually teaching him while he was there. He did not just throw him to the curb and, give him the scraps. He took him under his wing for 3 years, whatever it was, 3-4 years, and Jordan's ready. So yes, Jordan could play at this level and win an MVP in the next 5 years.
I think in the back of my head, the thing I'm most worried about for Jordan Love is that these last 7 weeks are an anomaly, and that next year he could look in some way, next week he could look in some way like he did the first half of the season. Is there something that you can say to us Packer fans to settle our nerves a little bit that this trajectory, this growth that he has is sustainable and will continue, and he's not just going to revert back because this has been some fluky 7 game stretch?
I will say this is sustainable because if you actually look at it, the flukiness, in my opinion, of the season was that 5 game stretch after week 2. Because in weeks 1 and 2 against the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in those 2 weeks. Like, if you take the next 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 0 and 3, if you take a few of those weeks out before their bye week, he really just had a rough stretch against the Saints, the Lions the first time, the Raiders the second time, and then the Denver game. Like, that was kind of the rough stretch. Everything after that, for the most part, besides a game here and there, has been money. And that is also at the same time where if you look at their offense and the scheme and how they're running it and what they're asking Jordan to do now, you could look at the film in the first few weeks and say it was way different than what they're doing now offensively. And LaFleur has evolved, thank God, because what they were doing before was not sustainable. It was not the best way to do it. And now they're like taking shots when maybe they don't need to, but they think they need to play. They're not afraid to make mistakes. Early on, they were afraid to make mistakes and they felt like they needed to play perfect. But now they're cooking. And I think that if there was a most improved award for coaches this year, it probably would go to LaFleur's play calling because the last half of the season, it's looked a lot better than it did in the first part.
All right, let's move out to Denver. How does the Broncos and Russ situation impact team chemistry moving forward and potential free agent signings?
Ooh, man. I think that when you look at Sean Payton and how he's publicly treated Russell Wilson on the sideline and just kind of how he's talked about his players since he got there as if they're not his players. Like, Sean Payton went into this season, and from the very first press conference, you felt this like, oh shit, everyone's on an interview this year. We're not playing for Sean Payton. We're playing to try to impress him to stick around. And it's like, it doesn't look like they were ever really on the same page between coach and team to try to reach a goal at the end. It was like, this very much felt like an interview year for the team to Payton to see who was worthy to stick around. It's kind of the vibe that I got from everything that I read, everything I heard him say, and how he publicly treated players on the sideline and post game. So I don't know, man. This is one of those things where it feels like he got there so late with so many contracts that he couldn't get his guys. So this offseason, I guarantee you he's going to clean house. He's going to get his quote guys, and we'll see. But there's no more excuses after this year for him. Like, if they don't put up this year, and I'm sorry, dude, like, how did they stack up against the Raiders? How do they stack up against the Chiefs after the Chiefs, hopefully, for their sake, reload this year? I could see the Broncos being bottom barrel of that division next year even after he gets his quote guys in. And then what's the excuse going to be then? I don't know. I wouldn't expect that it's going to be a very enticing place to go free agent wise, knowing everything they know now. There's going to be a couple guys probably to go and get their money, but
yeah, you talk about a situation where it seems like Sean Payton all of a sudden starts feeling the pressure. And then when everybody starts feeling the pressure, as it sounds like you've experienced in the past, you've talked about your time in Atlanta, like it just turns into a finger pointing exercise where nobody's looking out for the betterment of the collective and everyone's looking out for themselves. And that seems to get really ugly quickly.
Yeah, dude, I know I've went on Sean Payton a bunch, and dude, we all see where this is going. Do we actually think that Sean Payton is going to have a 10-year career in Denver? I would be willing to bet a lot of money. No, are there odds out there that I could bet on Sean Payton not lasting through 2030 in Denver? Because I would. And if I'm wrong, great. Congrats to him. But we've seen this time and time again where a new coach comes in from a different era that thought he was whatever he was, and then he's out because it just didn't work here. And I don't know. I don't think that's a way to build a team. I think you have guys like Mike McDaniel and you have guys like Dan Campbell that show you that you can be respectful and treat your players as if they're equal or on the same level as you and not be a tyrant. And right now it just looks like this. I feel like I'm watching Game of Thrones over there. Like I really feel like I'm watching like is it the Lannisters, right? I feel like I'm watching the Lannisters like Red Wedding type shit going on in Denver, where you have House of Stark down there in Miami, and you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. I just don't think it's the modern day of the NFL. And the other thing is when you're getting these players coming out of college that have been catered to and they have their NIL deals and they've already made all this money, and like some of these guys they're taking pay cuts going to the NFL from what they made in college. Like there is no more of this like hierarchy of coaches being able to just talk down on players because the players need it. Like the neediness of a lot of these upper echelon players now financially is not there like it used to be because they have other things going off the field, other income. Like the dynamic is different. And I think I don't know, maybe that's part of why it didn't work with Russ and Peyton. Like Russ makes so much more money than Sean Payton does. Like what Russ made this year and is guaranteed, it's probably 3 years of work for Sean Payton, right? Like I feel like there's some of that stuff going on that like it's human nature, dude. You know what people make in the room, and like it's just I don't know. It's a weird dynamic in the NFL because you have coaches that like make less than the players financially, and in a normal job, like the people who make the most money are the ones with authority, where like the ones in the NFL that don't make as much as the top players think they have authority when they really don't. And it's more just like, how do we all work together cohesively? And it's so weird, dude. Like, yeah, it's a weird dynamic if you just look at an organizational structure.
Totally. Well, speaking of coaches, Jim Harbaugh is going to play a national championship game here shortly, but we can't stop talking about his potential for an NFL return. What team do you think he would slot in best for as a coach, just by fit, quarterback? What are you even looking for when considering a coaching opportunity if you're Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, man. I look at like what division thrives on good defense. Like what division needs a solid defense to like make it happen. I could see Jim Harbaugh, and I know Pittsburgh's probably not moving on from Tomlin, but I could have seen him being a Pittsburgh Steeler, running his stuff in the AFC North and being in the same division as his brother. That would have been wild. Like could you imagine 2 times a year? Like that rivalry, it's just sick. But I don't think we're going to get that. I could see him replacing Pete Carroll in Seattle. You remember Harbaugh obviously had a good run with the 49ers, knows the West well, knows how that division plays out too. I could see him going there if Pete Carroll gets fired. I also could see him being a guy in the NFC North, but I don't think there's going to be vacancies this year. I don't. Sounds like Eberflus is coming back. Could also see him going to New England. I think he seems more personable than Belichick, and I think the Patriots could use a little bit of that because I think the stone coldness and like the way that it's done there needs a little bit of a shakeup, but there's still this like legacy to be held, and I think he's the guy for that. So yeah, I just see he needs to go where defense is needed and like cherished, and I think those are the North teams.
Okay, 2 that you didn't say that I thought you might. The LA Chargers obviously have a great quarterback situation. There have been reports, I think it was Mike Greenberg went on Pat McAfee and said he talked to Jim Harbaugh, and just unprompted, Jim Harbaugh went for about 5 minutes about how much he loved Justin Herbert.
Ooh, I like
less
that.
than a year ago. And so that's potential. And then maybe you could also see a couple NFC West teams. The Commanders are obviously going to be looking for a coach. I think the Eagles
NFC
could
East.
be NFC East.
Yep,
Yeah, I
they're
think
good.
the Eagles could be a sneaky team who might
Could you
have to fill
imagine?
a vacancy. And with all the pressure in the city, I mean, I think he would be the guy, the kind of figurehead that could handle
Dude,
that.
I could totally see him. I didn't even think of Sirianni being on the hot seat, but after this debacle and like mismanagement of the roster, like their GM does a hell of a job, obviously. But I think there's been looking like there's some incompetency from the coordinators, and that stems from the head coach because he's responsible with hiring the guys that he hired that have very little play calling experience or NFL experience at all. Like their offensive coordinator now has 3 years of NFL experience. And the last 2 years, not even three, this is his third year of NFL experience. Prior to that, he was a quarterback coach for 2 years in the same offense. So, like, it obviously looks way different. I think those guys are at this point underqualified with what they put in out on tape, like just showing that they're not as productive with the roster they have. Man, I could see Harbaugh definitely looking good and Gang Green. I think he fits that. He might not be edgy enough for Philly though. Like I don't know. I
Mm,
think Harbaugh's a little too clean cut for Philly. But
sure.
I don't know. I also think with the Chargers, I think the Chargers need if they're going to get another defensive head coach, they have got to have just a score of an offense coordinator. And I don't know who that might be right now. I could see the Lions OC going to the Chargers more than I could Harbaugh. I just I think that Justin Herbert needs a bright offensive mind that sees it inside and out in the room with him. That's a head coach more often than not, because that's kind of the way of the NFL right now. The most successful teams have that.
It also seems like you need an organization too. When you consider what Harbaugh might be looking for in a fit, that's willing to give him quite a bit of power. You know,
Mm-hmm.
your counterpoint to the Eagles not being a good fit is they already have a really good GM in Howie Roseman, and I imagine Harbaugh would want some amount of control over personnel, and maybe they're not willing to give him that in
Yeah.
Philly. Whereas in Washington with a new owner, they're more willing to sell the house to Harbaugh to get him to come just because
Yeah.
they're that
Dude,
desperate.
Washington's I think as far as like history of the organization, I think that's a fit. And it sucks because back in the day, Washington, like they used to be like a nasty team you didn't want to have to play. And in recent years, it's just been like, all right, thank God we play Washington this week because we'll probably get a dub. And I think you need a guy like Harbaugh to revitalize a franchise like that that's fallen so far from what their history says.
Totally. Another great question we had come through. I really like this one. How much of a quote desire to play in a scheme affect an individual's success? Looking at the Packer situation, how much could the frustration with play calling be a proponent as opposed to injuries and youth?
Mm. Ooh, I think that's a really deep question. Um, I'm going to take my interpretation of it and run with it. So I think you look at guys like Odell Beckham, right? And like his choice to go to the Ravens, I think was a choice to try to win a Super Bowl again. And it's going to be hard nosed football. The receivers have to block more often. He's not going to get as many targets. It might not be as fun as playing in the Rams offense, but he made a decision to go try to chase another ring. So that was his incentive. And he obviously showed that he can make the big plays when he needs to, but he's not getting 10 targets a game like he could maybe in a different scheme. When he was with the Rams, he was taking over Cooper Kupp's workload like before he got hurt. He was the reason that offense exploded the way it did. And then you have other guys where like they're just trying to go get the money, right? And like try to get their targets and maybe go to a lesser team because they want to be the dude. So I think all of it changes. It's person to person and all of it does matter. And I think you can start to see what has a person already done in his career and what might he want to accomplish the most next. Everyone wants to win a Super Bowl, but it's hard to win a Super Bowl. So like take into consideration all the different factors. I think it's the best I can answer that question. But yeah, certain schemes, receivers specifically in free agency are asked to do a lot in the run game. Other schemes, like go be a baller.
Sure. There's a second part of that question, which I now realize was a bit unrelated, but he says, looking at the Packers situation, how much could the frustration with play calling, which I'm not even sure we have a frustration
Not
with play calling.
anymore.
You've actually been very complimentary of Matt LaFleur, but maybe early in the season, how much of that was the play calling versus injuries and youth? The Packers notably have a very young core of receivers, backs, and quarterbacks.
I think it was 50-50. No, I'm going to say it was 60% play calling, 40% youth. And I don't think injuries have anything to do with it because injuries shouldn't affect play calling that much. And I think early in the year, everyone, including LaFleur, was tiptoeing through what did they feel like they could do with Jordan? What did they feel like they could do with that offense? And what were they willing to expose these guys to? Where like they got to the point in the year where their back was against the wall and they said, F it. If we're gonna mess up, if we're gonna if we're gonna have our back against the wall, we're at least gonna go out swinging. We're gonna take shots. We're gonna ask more of our young guys instead of holding their hands through it. They also simplified things where they needed to be simplified. There didn't seem to be as many miscues and routes. I just think it looks like the whole operation is more concise. And that's, kudos to the staff. Kudos to Jordan for the extra time he's putting in with the receivers to give them on the same page. But the crazy thing is like looking back earlier in the year, Jordan, in my opinion, hasn't played much different than he did early. He's played a lot cleaner, more consistently later, but he was still making plays like that early in the year that just were not connecting with players. The guys would be in the wrong spots, like the chains wouldn't move because they ran the wrong route on third down. So then he never even got a chance to throw in the red zone because they're punting. So all this to say, like, they had to rip the Band-Aid off and realize that we're a young team, but we have to grow up. We can't hold our guys' hands through this play calling process, and they're gonna have to go make plays, and they have been doing that. So I don't think that's really a point anymore. I don't think you can blame on the play calling, but early on, I was very critical, and I think rightfully so. And you've seen a change. So I think they internally, after their bye week and what they saw and did their self scouts, saw like, look, there's other things happening around the league. There's other easier ways to do it that we can put right into our scheme right now, and they've been doing that.
All right. We're going to turn the clock back to about a month ago. At the end of November, Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee, talk about how Dak was one of his favorite quarterbacks to watch now that he's been watching a lot of football on TV this year. Do you agree with that opinion that Rodgers has about how he's playing the position at a high level, calling protection adjustments, things like that?
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think the biggest thing with Dak right now is, and I know people like make fun of his cadence, but him with his own cadence and his own like way to say things and do things, it's like his offense now. It's not like you're reading in your install sheet. We say set hut, green 19, set hut, set hut. Like it's not this. It's like, no, this is what we're like Dak. This is what we're doing. This is Dak right now. We're going to go, here we go. And you're going to play off of my voice. And then if I need to slow it down, speed it up, whatever, you're going to get in sync with me. So I don't have to think about my cadence. My cadence is going to be second nature to me because it's my words, my saying, whatever. He doesn't have to think about cadence, and the guys around him spend so much time with hearing it. They don't have to think about it. Like cadence is actually a really important thing in the NFL, in my opinion, that most teams don't use as a weapon. Aaron Rodgers, for the longest time, has used it as a weapon. If you asked Aaron Rodgers to go and like change a cadence from the Packers to the Jets, you'd be asking him to change something that is literally another language to him that he's had for the last 10 years, and that'd be a learning curve for him. So let's take that out of the equation, let him go play ball. So what Dak is doing, in my opinion, he's owning the entire pre-snap process with his language, with his voice, with how he like speeds it up, slows it down. He's able to stop things in their tracks, redirect cover or redirect protection, re-mic people, know where things are coming. Like he is in full control of that offense, and that's what Aaron means. And then that's just pre-snap. Then you go to the post-snap with how his feet work. Dak even said it earlier in the year. Look, I feel like I've never played quarterback the right way until this year when I learned the West Coast way of playing and like learning with my feet and accuracy and like trusting that I can let the ball go, because 90% of the time on this route, no matter who the receiver is, he's catching it at this landmark because that's the timing that it takes. So you're just seeing him taking this like 2D way of playing the game into this 3D immersive world that he's playing in. He's ripping seams versus cover two backed up. He's like scrambling, throwing dimes down the field. Like he is fully leveraging all of his skill set into all of this scheme and making it come to life. And that's the difference though. Like when you see a backup quarterback come in and play for a guy that's like, it's not his offense, it's not his cadence. How many times do you see offensive linemen jump off sides when a new quarterback comes in? It's the cadence and it's the way that their inflection changes. And like, I guarantee you, Dak could probably tell the guys, hey, I'm not going to give you the snap count here. You'll know when to go, whether it's one or on two, because they'll know the inflection in his voice, how it changes from on one and on two. And I think that's what Aaron means when he's saying it's fun to watch him play, because that's the level that Aaron's played at for the last 10 years. It's science, dude. It's like the quarterback position is like a science and art mix, and Dak's playing both sides of it.
Incredible. Last question here before we move on to some DFS talk. Who do you think the Pats are going to take in the draft? For some context, currently set at number 3 seed before this final week of football. Looks like they could slip to as far as, the 7th pick, but they could also be the number 2 pick if things go their way this weekend. So who do you have them, or who do you hope they draft this upcoming draft?
I would love to see them find a way to get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, or even like they need him. They need one of the receivers that's been popping up lately in this like late playoff stretch. Even like one of the Washington guys. Like, I think what they need, whether it's a first round guy or a second or third round guy with a high ceiling that's a little more raw, they need an electric playmaker because when's the last time they've had that? Can we think?
Like you might have to go back to like Randy Moss.
That was the first one that came to mind. When is the last time that the Packer or the Patriots have had a guy? And I think right now they need to hit on a draft pick like that is a generational Odell Beckham type talent, like a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase. Like they need to hit on a receiver that can make a quarterback's job easier because right now, if you take some of these guys out of the equation for their quarterbacks, their careers don't look the same. And I'm sorry, I'll be the one to say it. Pat Mahomes' last 2 years, especially this year, have looked a lot different without Tyreek Hill. Tua, his career has looked a lot different since Tyreek showed up. It can change franchises, it can change quarterbacks' careers, everything. Like, give your guys a chance to have the easy way out with a receiver that can go make plays that the Patriots have not had for probably over a decade.
All right, let's talk some picks, Kurt. I think there's a little rebounding that needs to happen this week.
Dude,
little birdie told me that last weekend was not a great weekend for you.
No, I went 0 for 14 in my sleeper entries, and I had to redeposit money. I had to do it for the real first time. No. I had to redeposit money, but that's fine because I love the board this week. I love
spoken like a true DFS guy.
Dude, I look at this board and I'm like, there's value everywhere with this weirdness of week 18 where some people are sitting, some people need it, some don't. Right now, though, like I have this one entry, and I don't even know if by the time everyone sees this, it's going to be available. But this is one that I have $250 makes $4,500. And I'm starting to swing for the fences here, guys. I'm done with these 2 to 3 Lakers. I'm going for 5+ from here on out because I'm trying to swing big.
All right.
I have Josh Downs over 3.5 receptions versus the Texans. Hopefully it's still there. Maybe it's not. I have Josh Allen under an interception. I'm taking that Josh Allen in a gotta-have-it game against a depleted Miami Dolphins defense. I'm saying he's going to take care of the football. Has it happened?
I've done that once before, Kurt. Yeah, I've done that once before, and that lasted about, I think, 5 minutes in the first quarter before
and it
that
might,
lost.
But I'm willing this into existence because I believe in Josh. I believe he's going to hit some Zen moments this week. I think he's going to show up. I think clean cut Josh Allen's going to show up when he needs it most and when his team needs it most. No interception, Josh. I hope this finds its way into your inbox because don't throw that whole shot versus tight coverage this week. Just don't do it. We need you to just play clean, dude. Just run the ball. Then I got Ali Cox over 1.5 reception. Their tight end with the Colts. I like that he has 1.5 because 1.5 is easy and they're going to have to throw the ball versus the Texans. And also he had 2 last week. Give me 2 receptions. I like it. Give me 2 receptions. It's a little, and it's a high multiplier. That's why I added it on this one. 2.4x. So like, what's good? Let me see it. Then we got our guy Shaheed. Shaheed is just the Gabe Davis of the South, but I think that he's going to have 3 receptions this week because the Saints need it. And I think that the Falcons are going to be giving extra attention to Olave. Give me Shaheed 3 receptions. Derek Carr, please just hit him in his chest. Just hit him in his chest. Let him do his thing. And then last but not least, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Baltimore in a gotta-have-it game for them and a game where Baltimore is just not gotta-have-it so much. Give me Chris Boswell over 6.5 kick points. 2 field goals and an extra point. I think they can do it. I think he can find a way to have 6.5. He had 10 and 12 in the last 2 weeks against the Bengals and the Seahawks, and I think he can find a way to get 7 this week. So that's one that I like right now as I put that one together already. And right now we got some more games that are popping up. So got some reception lines. Everyone knows I love my reception lines. What I'm seeing right now across the board though is you need to find guys that are going to get their targets. And right now I think George Pickens is one of those guys. He's going to have over 3.5 receptions. He had 7 last week, 4 the week before. Mason Rudolph can throw the deep ball, and George Pickens can, damn it, he can catch the deep ball. So give me his over, and give me Deontay Johnson's over of 3.5 because I think he's consistently hitting 4. But as of right now, that's about what I'm touching because this week's going to get flaky, but I do think there's some locks in here to be had.
I agree. There's also some interesting incentives at play for players. So you always come to week 18. You have these player incentives that in order to earn another 250K to a couple $1,000,000, a player needs a catch or two. So we have them listed out here. Do with this information what you will. There's a lot of great examples of players hitting this in their last week. I just was doing some research, and Christian Kirk last year, he needed something like 2 receptions and 91 yards to earn another $500,000, and he hadn't done that for 4 weeks. In the last week of the season, he manages to string together.
They'll feed those guys, dude. And trust me, the coaches. This is the cool part about these bonuses. The rooms know, like the coaches in the room. So like the receivers room, they talk. And you got guys like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he needs like 6 receptions or something like that. Is that on the list?
DeAndre Hopkins is not on this list, but as you talk, I'll pull it up because he needs around there.
I think he needs 6 receptions for like 250K, and then he needs some other stuff for like another 500K. But you got guys like him that are vets, right? Like that have influence. You cannot tell me that these coordinators, if they're not looking out for their guys, aren't going to find a few screens here and there on these reception props. And you guys know I love reception props, but this week especially, go digging for these incentives because there will be designed screens for these guys. And if there's not and it doesn't hit, that's a good bet gone bad. But I'm really liking some of these incentives, and I think they should influence your decisions on these DFS plays.
So to come back on DeAndre Hopkins, he needs 7 receptions for a $250,000 bonus, and then he needs something like 49 yards only for another $250,000. And if he manages to score 2 touchdowns, he gets another $250,000.
Give me D-Hop legacy game. Give me a D-Hop legacy game. And Tannehill's in, and Tannehill's a vet, and Tannehill's going to feed his guys. So, dude, we might have just found the gem. Go find DeAndre Hopkins when he becomes available in these entries and go hammer his receptions at least, and maybe his yards if it's low enough.
We'll list a couple others for people here. OBJ needs 5 catches for 250,000 yards. Nelson Aguilar needs 58 yards for 250,000K. Or 250K. Dalton Schultz needs 6 catches for 250K and 107 yards for another 250K. Jadeveon Clowney needs 1 sack for $750,000. So that might be a really sneaky one. You might be able to get a pretty good multiplier on that too.
Let's go. Joe Mixon, is it? Let me see. Maybe it's not up yet. These rats.
Okay. if it's up, it's going to be a spicy one. Joe Mixon needs 2 touchdowns for 100K. And the nice part here is, like, even if they're trying to feed Joe Mixon, his line is probably only going to be at half a touchdown.
Exactly.
So you just take the more on that. And I mean, you don't need to actually score 2.
You don't got to go crazy.
Josh Reynolds on the Lions needs 36 yards for 250K. Alexander Mattison needs 91 rushing yards for 250K. Jordan Love needs to make the playoffs for 500K. That's not something that you can place an entry on Sleeper, but that is.
But you can take his passing touchdowns. You can take his passing touchdowns at 1.5. What's it gonna take to make it to the playoffs? Give me Jordan Love over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Set at 1.53 multiplier, which means Sleeper thinks he's going to throw for 3 probably. Once that multiplier starts getting like under 1.7 to 1.6, 1.5, 1.4, then they bump it up to 2.5 and it's a higher multiple. So if you want as close of a sure bet on passing touchdowns based on what their odds are saying, go grab Jordan Love 1.5 passing touchdowns because I'm making an entry right now. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm like, George Pickens is in it. Shaheed's in it. Jordan Love's in it. And right now it's 250 makes 970. And I'm looking for a few more sprinkles because I need action this week, Tyler. Like, I'm not trying to go into the playoffs on a cold streak.
Did you sound down bad?
I'm not resting my guys. I'm not resting my wallet.
Yeah.
I'm not resting.
I got you. Well, here's a ridiculous one. I don't know how this helps in the context of DFS, unfortunately. It's just crazy that I have to read it. Darius Slayton needs 1 catch for a $2.5 million bonus. So, again, he gets his 1 catch. Who knows how much they're feeding him. But the fact that he just needs
million?
one. $2.5 million.
Oh
I couldn't believe it. When producer Roddy put that in there.
Producer Roddy. I love it.
That could not be a real stat, but alas, it is. Let's sound a couple others for you. Devin Singletary needs something like 165 rushing yards for 125K bonus. Chris Jones needs just half a sack for a $1.25 million bonus.
Oh my God.
That one could be spicy.
Who are they playing?
I don't think Mahomes is. I think they're resting their starters, so Chris Jones might not even play.
Chris Jones needs to suit his ass up and go out there and get that sack, man.
Although he might, a first half, try to get a half a sack if you can do it. Austin Eckler needs something like 120 yards for a $100,000 bonus. I already mentioned Madison to you and Dalton Schultz. So there's a lot out there, and you can look it up. Like even Baker Mayfield has a lot of interesting incentives that don't exactly correlate to DFS, so I'll just read them for you. He'll earn $1 million in total incentives if they make the playoffs.
Respect.
$300,000 if he finishes in the top 10 of the entire NFL or the top 5 of the NFC in the following categories. So passer rating is one of them. He's currently 9th in the NFL and 5th in the NFC.
Dude, wait a minute. This is a
Passing
Baker Mayfield legacy game.
Passing touchdowns, another one. He's currently 4th in the NFL. Crazy. And 4th in the NFC. Passing yards, another one. He's in contention for both of those. Completion percentage is another one. Not so great on that in the grand scheme of the NFL and the NFC. And then yards per attempt. So maybe if you're thinking Baker Mayfield legacy game, you sprinkle some touchdowns, you sprinkle some yards. Might be something he's considering as he is playing for a win-and-in game.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I need to go cook with this. I know. As of time of recording, Baker Mayfield's not available, but my eyes will be peeled all the way up until game time because, look, man, Baker may have some bad games here and there, but he's a dog, and I think Baker's going to do whatever the hell it takes to get his money and get his team into the playoffs. And yeah, the Bucs are one of those teams that I'm like, if they get in the playoffs and they have a good, like, if they show up that day, they could beat anybody. They could compete with anybody. But if they don't show up, they could look like they did last week against the Saints.
Yeah, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a guy like Baker Mayfield is probably thinking about winning the game more than his incentives. Like, is that kind of a taboo topic in the quarterback room where it's like, hey Baker, if you throw 3 more touchdowns here, you get an extra 100K. It's like, dude, we're trying to win a game here.
I don't know. I think he's trying to do both, dude. I think the thing in the locker room is like at this point in the year, everybody knows. Everybody knows what starts to become available, and like everyone's like, yo, like you're like you need 50 yards. And people pull for their teammates for that. So it's like, it's kind of like a side quest, right? Like you do the main quest in video games, but like these side quests, they're pretty cool. And I think Baker Mayfield's going to find a way to finish his side quests while doing the main quest, all to make the playoffs.
Are they tiered? And I'm sure they are. Like, you, Kurt, as a backup in the NFL wouldn't have the same incentives as Aaron Rodgers for much of his career, or else you never hit them. But like, how tiered are they? Like, what would an incentive in your contract look like versus an incentive in Aaron Rodgers' contract?
Well, in my contract, I got paid because I was so low. It was I got paid per play that I was in. So like when I took my kneel downs, I got paid for them. But like I would say the guys that have more guaranteed money have less bonuses, and the guys that have less are willing to take because I think it affects the cap differently. I don't know if it even affects the cap at all for these bonuses. So some of these guys will do a pay cut to go play for a team that they really want to play for and just bank on making all their money in bonuses. So I think it's a way to maneuver through the cap, but also teams can be very generous in how low they set these benchmarks, like giving us number one running back 500 yards for the year rushing as a $500,000 bonus is a way for them to give them like a layup. So teams that take care of the players look out for them in the bonus category, and it's not a negative for the team when they hit these bonuses because like if they hit them, they're probably playing pretty well that year or well enough. So I think it's all a positive thing.
Yeah, I think of a guy like Zach Wilson, and his contract was a rookie contract, so it's a bad example, but think Case Keenum, who came in for a couple of games while CJ Stroud was out. I'm sure his incentives were pretty low, anticipating he wasn't going to be playing much this year. And then when you get those 2 to 3 games, your eyes just probably light up as a backup player that gets to come in and really cash in on those incentives. They're probably not all play based, I'd imagine, like yours were, but I mean, they're probably low enough where you're like just checking these things off because you're playing a full game.
Dude, in the NFL, like your career is so fleeting. So like any little bit of extra money you can make, dude, stack it, put it in the bank, and be thankful that those opportunities came up, because sometimes guys aren't even lucky enough to get an opportunity. Just wait around and nobody gets hurt or no opportunity comes up. So take advantage of anything that falls into your lap.
All right. Well, we'll be trying to take advantage of some of these player incentives. Dude. Hopefully Sleeper doesn't listen to this episode before.
I'm going to let you know.
I'm sure they know about it.
I'm going to let you know right now, Doug. I have George Pickens for 3.5 receptions, Dak Prescott 1.5 passing touchdowns, Jordan Love 1.5 passing touchdowns, Anders Carlson over 6.5 kick points this week against Chicago, and then Shaheed 2.5 receptions, $500, pays like 4,000 something, like upper fours. And if any one of these hits, then we're good, we're fine. And if they don't, I got to re-upload because it's the name of the game. But it's been a great year. I've been fortunate to be on the luckier side of the stick being drawn in all of these entries in these games. So it's been a lot of fun. And dude, soon enough, we'll be transitioning to some basketball entries would be wild.
That'll be great. We might have to preface all of those entries with
I don't know what I'm talking about.
We're talking about.
Yeah, like this is a shot in the dark. Literally.
Yeah, this is not advice. Yeah, right. All right. Well, a big week of football, Kurt.
Dude, let's do it.
We'll circle back. Check in. Wait, can you check in on your tweet for me? Did you actually post that?
I did post it. Okay. Let's see.
The ridiculousness that Jordan Love hasn't made a Pro Bowl, but Tyler Huntley has made a Pro Bowl, has elicited such reaction.
It is pretty. It's doing its thing. It's doing its thing.
This is how you know you fully transitioned into a post-playing career, when you're just firing off purposely spicy takes like this. I think a lot of people, watch and listen to you because of your measured expert opinions on things, but every once in a while you gotta get them.
Dude, I can't just let the sleeping dogs lie all the time, dude. I gotta let the dogs eat a little bit. So I'm gonna throw them a bone, give them a little thing to get them like juiced up for something to talk about at work today, and then we'll meet back on Twitter after work. Love it. Dude, you can find me on Twitter. I promise you that. But no, dude, this has been so much fun today. I'm starting to really like this. This is a Friday episode, recorded Thursday. I think it gives us a nice little like break to let some more action happen. By the way, new listeners, old listeners, every Tuesday and Friday now episodes drop, giving you a little bit of just time for things to accumulate in the NFL cycle weekly. And man, before we know it, the games will be here. Let's get it. Until next time, we are your hosts. See ya.